Right now, as you're watching this, there is a light bulb burning in a fire station in California. It was switched on in 1901. It has never been replaced. It has almost never been switched off. It was already old when the Titanic sank. It was burning through both world wars, the moon landing, the invention of the internet, and every single light bulb you have ever thrown away. It's still on. There's a webcam. You can go and watch it after this, and I want you to hold one question in your head for the next 10 minutes because I'm not going to answer it for a while. If we could do that in 1901, why does the bulb in your kitchen die every couple of years? The answer is not that we forgot how. The answer is that in 1924, in a room in Geneva, a group of men got together and decided you shouldn't have it. But first, let me introduce you to the bulb. It's small. It's hand-blown glass. It looks like a little glowing pear, and it hangs from a cord in the ceiling of Fire Station 6 in Livermore, California. It was made in the 1890s by the Shelby Electric Company of Shelby, Ohio, and designed by a French engineer named Adolphe Chalet. And Chalet is our first mystery because we know he was born in Paris. In 1867, we know he built this thing. And then we lose him. Historians can't tell you when he died. Somewhere after 1914, the man who built the longest burning object in the world simply walks out of the record. His bulb was sold with the modest claim that it was the best lamp on Earth. That advertisement has aged extremely well. In 1901, it was donated to the local fire department back when fire engines were pulled by horses and about 3% of American homes had electricity at all. They hung it up so the volunteers could find their way in the dark, and then they just left it on. And here's where I stopped calling it an object, because the firefighters don't. They call it the oldest member of the crew. When they moved it to a new station in 1976, they didn't put it in a box. They gave it a police escort and a fire truck escort. An electrician was waiting at the other end to install it. It was without power for 22 minutes, and people were nervous the entire time. Today, it's watched over by a committee that includes the fire department, the local heritage guild, and I promise this is true, 2 national laboratories. Lawrence Livermore and Sandia. The people who work on nuclear weapons help look after a light bulb. It has a webcam. It has a Guinness record. One fire chief said that if it went out on his watch, it'd be a career's worth of bad luck. And in 2013, it went out. Someone had very sensibly put the world's oldest light bulb on an uninterruptible power supply, a backup battery. So a blackout could never kill it. The backup battery died before the bulb did. For 9 hours and 45 minutes, the webcam showed nothing, and the fire station's phones lit up with people around the world calling to report that the bulb was dead. It wasn't. When they bypassed the failed supply and gave it power again, it came back, and for a few hours it burned at its original 60 watts. Full brightness, like it was making a point, before settling back down to its usual dim 4. Nobody knows why it did that either. Okay. Now, why doesn't yours do that? December 23rd, 1924, in Geneva, Switzerland. Outside, the city is hanging its Christmas lights. Inside, the most powerful men in the lighting industry are dividing up the planet. Osram from Germany, Philips from the Netherlands, Compagnie des Lampes from France, Associated Electrical Industries from Britain, Tokyo Electric, who you'd know today as Toshiba, and General Electric, who technically couldn't join because that would be illegal under American antitrust law, so they participated through their overseas companies instead. Which tells you they knew exactly what this was. They called it Phoebus. They named it after Phoebus Apollo, the god of light. They chartered it in Switzerland for 30 years, carved the world into territories, and handed each member their quota. It was the first cartel in history with genuine global reach. And they had a problem. Their bulbs were too good. A bulb in 1924 lasted somewhere between 1,500 and 2,500 hours, which is wonderful, unless you sell bulbs, because a customer with a working bulb is a customer who never comes back. They'd built the perfect product and accidentally destroyed their own market, so they fixed it. The rule was simple. No member would sell a household bulb rated to last more than 1,000 hours. Not a cap on the bad ones, a cap on the good ones. And they took their engineers, brilliant people who had spent their careers making light last longer, and turned them around. Same skill, opposite direction. And the engineers did it by adjusting voltage and current until the number came down. But an agreement is just a promise. Here's the part that turns this from a bad decision into one of the great villain moves of the 20th century. They set up testing. Member factories had to send their bulbs in to be measured, and if your bulbs lasted too long, you were fined. There is a table from 1929 that lists exactly how many Swiss francs you owed based on how far over 1,000 hours your bulb went. A price list. For quality, the further past 1,000 hours you got, the more you paid. Sit with that. There were engineers somewhere being professionally penalized for being too good at their jobs. And this wasn't an accident of translation or a misread memo. Anton Phillips, the head of Philips, wrote to another cartel executive worrying that they might slip back and start making long-life lamps again. His words, they must not sink back into the same mire. The mire, making things that last, was the mire. In 1927, Tokyo Electric wrote to the cartel, more or less bragging, "We cut our lamp life from 2,500 hours down to 1,600, and our sales went up." And it worked. Between 1926 and the mid-30s, the average life of a Phoebus test bulb fell from around 1,800 hours to about 1,200. They were on their way to 1,000 on schedule. The world's light bulbs got worse on purpose, according to a plan, enforced by fines. So the Livermore bulb proves it, right? Proof that they could have given us eternal bulbs and chose not to. No, and this is the part most videos about this story leave out, so stay with me, because the truth is better. The Livermore bulb is a terrible argument. Look at it. It's 4 watts. It's about as bright as a nightlight. You couldn't read under it, and the reason it survived isn't magic. It's that it runs cool and dim, and it's almost never switched off. What actually kills a bulb is being turned on and off. That, shock of heating and cooling. Livermore's bulb has been sitting there in a warm hum for a century, never flinching, and that's the real engineering trade-off. You can build a bulb that lasts forever. You do it by running the filament cooler, which makes it dimmer and less efficient, and it burns more electricity to make less light. So the cartel's defense was, a shorter-lived bulb is a brighter, more efficient bulb. Customers want light, not longevity. And that argument is not stupid. It's real physics. If the story ended there, this would be a video about a misunderstood engineering optimum. Except you don't need a testing laboratory to enforce physics. You don't need a table of fines in Swiss francs to enforce physics. Nobody has to be penalized into obeying thermodynamics. The fines are the confession. An optimum doesn't need a police force. If 1,000 hours were simply the best engineering answer, every member would have landed there on their own. And Phoebus wouldn't have needed a rule, a lab, and a punishment schedule to hold them all in line. They weren't discovering a limit. They were enforcing one. Phoebus itself didn't last. Its patents expired, its members squabbled, the courts came for it, and the Second World War finished it off. The agreement was supposed to run until 1955, and it died around 1940. The cartel lasted about 15 years. The idea has lasted 100, because Phoebus proved something that can't be unproven, that how long your product lasts is not a fact of engineering. It's a setting, a dial, something a company chooses in a meeting based on what's good for the company. Once one industry demonstrated that dial exists, every industry knew where to find it. That's the actual invention of 1924. Not a worse bulb, a worse idea. The gold rush had shovel sellers. Subscriptions have landlords. This one gave us the dial. So, that light bulb in California, it has now outlived the company that made it. It outlived the engineer who designed it, and we don't even know where he's buried. It outlived every firefighter who first hung it up. It outlived the cartel that spent 15 years trying to make sure nothing like it would ever be sold again. It outlived the machine they built to protect it, and it's still on. Right now, dim, stubborn 4 watts of pure spite in a California fire station. It isn't proof that they stole eternal light from us. It's something better than that. It's a witness. Go look at it.